As more and more people adjust to the life in quarantine, we are starting what's becoming a global social experiment. Ideas that we only talked about in the years before are being put into action on a massive scale. This is going to be a difficult time, but it's also going to the spark of some incredible changes. Top 10 ways COVID-19 will change our lives forever. Working from home is a necessity today. There are no hard statistics on how many people are working remotely around the world. The world is engaged in a global work from home experiment, and we're going to see firsthand just how sustainable it is. There are already studies on this, and the results are very positive. One found that people working from home have 16.8 more days worth of productivity a year. If employers see the results for themselves, there's going to be no denying that letting people continue working from home after the pandemic is over isn't going to send them out of business. The idea of sending every person in a country a monthly check, even if they don't go to work, was starting to pop up on the campaign trails. The United Kingdom has committed to paying 80% of its workers' salaries. Denmark has offered to pay upward to 90%. Even the United States is sending a $1,200 check to almost every adult American. There's going to be test runs on how these policies really affect society. Finland tried universal basic income in 2017 and 2018, which concluded that people were happy but jobless. This might be what we find in the rest of the world. Companies that use more automation are already doing better than those that rely on cramming human workers into a tightly packed factory, and companies are starting to take notice. We can expect a lot of manufacturing companies to turn to automation to survive, and a lot of other companies, too. They've even experimented with robotic hospitals, where machines take your temperature, deliver your meals, and disinfect your room to keep humans from having to come into contact with someone carrying a disease. By the time this pandemic is over, your job just might have been filled by a robot. Schools are shut down in nearly every country that's seen an outbreak of COVID-19, and that's turning parents into teachers into a whole new era of education. The next few months, online learning is going to be the norm. No matter how tech-savvy your teacher is, they're going to have to learn how to make education digital. A major problem is that online learning has disadvantages. Children whose parents don't have time to push them on their education fall further behind, while those who can't afford internet access are almost completely excluded. A lot of parents are turning to homeschooling, and since homeschooled kids typically score higher on standardized tests than kids in public schools, there's a good chance that a lot of those parents will stick with it. The rise of big government, a good thing or not, is up to debate, but good or bad, there's a lot of reason to believe that it's true. Around the world, people have been embracing big government ever since COVID-19 began to spread. Socialist policies are being implemented all around the world, even in countries led by conservative and libertarian leaders. The U.S. government is planning on spending trillions in fighting COVID-19, while the United Kingdom's Boris Johnson has said that there's no ceiling to how much they'll spend. Government of Israel has started using its people's cell phone location to identify those who have come in contact with an infected patient. If you've been near them, you'll get a text telling you to quarantine yourself immediately. If hands-off government comes back in fashion when this is over, there are bound to be a few bills passed that, before COVID-19, never would have made it through. The people of South Korea are going to have to line up outside of booths and cast their votes in the 2020 election. The country hasn't had time to react. So far, their solution is not good. They're going to require voters to wear masks, disposable gloves, and they're going to check everyone's temperatures before allowing them to enter. It's going to be a disaster. We can count on the voter turnout being abysmal, and it's going to be a wake-up call for the rest of the world. It's going to affect the United States, where primaries are already underway and a federal election is scheduled in November. Americans are going to have to change their voting rules this year, and we can expect those changes to be permanent. 2 in 3 Americans already say they're worried about voting in person, and some are already fighting for a change. Texas Democrats filed a lawsuit for the right to vote by mail. Other states are encouraging people to exclusively mail in their ballots. Utah introduced voting by mail. They saw a 7% increase in voter turnout. A lot of companies are being hit hard right now, but nobody as hard as bars and restaurants. The next few months, these businesses and their employees are going to be stripped of any revenue stream that doesn't come from the government. A lot of them aren't going to be able to survive it. That's going to change the face of our world, because, while a lot of local pubs aren't going to survive, big companies will persevere. When people get an appetite to go wining and dining again, and when servers start looking for work, the big chains will still be there. McDonald's will weather the storm, and that's going to reshape our world. Approximately about 50% of Americans work for small businesses. But when this is over, that percentage will probably lower. Up until now, the world has relied on China as its manufacturing hub. They manufacture 20% of the world's goods more than any other country on Earth. They have an even bigger role in healthcare. 90% of America's antibiotics come from China. China has gone under quarantine and has struggled to keep up its demand. It's become increasingly clear just how dangerous it is to rely on a single location to supply the world. Several countries are starting to bring manufacturing back into their own borders, while others are talking about spreading out their manufacturing to several different places. Countries around the world embraced socialized medicine concept after the Spanish flu pandemic in 1918. People started to realize that the health of the poor affected everyone, and the first discussions that would lead to universal health care began. Only a handful of countries that don't have universal health care today, but this could be the moment that takes the rest of the world into free health care. 41% of Americans already say that they are more likely to support universal health care in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, and policies seem to be leaning in that direction too. If treatment isn't made free before the pandemic's over, we're sure to see more people demanding it. COVID-19 is hitting our health hard, but it's hitting our economy even harder. Before this is over, it could be even worse. Another analyst believes that, before this over, 7.4 million people in the leisure and hospitality industry will be unemployed. The poor are going to be hit hardest of all. Office workers are going to be able to work remotely from home. It'll mostly be servers and warehouse workers that suffer through this pandemic. That's going to be painful, but as Scheidel said, equality was only ever brought forth in sorrow. We're going to learn a lot from this experience, and once we know what the real lesson of COVID-19 is, people are going to be demanding change. Experts are already predicting a revolution. COVID-19 is going to put us to the test. When that test is over, we're going to have a better understanding of the cracks in our societies. And if we're lucky, our world just might wind up a better place. Stay safe and healthy. Good luck.